Before empires rose, before borders were drawn, there was a land of wisdom, fire, and soul, a land that breathed in rhythm with the universe. That land is rising again, not with weapons, not with fear, but with vision, voice, and unshakable spirit. This isn't just about politics or power. This is about destiny unfolding. If you think you know India, think again, because what's coming isn't a return to the past. It's a leap into a future the world is not ready for. Stay with me, watch closely. Every word you hear today will shift how you see the world. And who shapes it? India's rise is causing a significant shift in the global geopolitical landscape. Traditionally, the world has operated under a Western-centric order dominated by powers like the United States and Europe. For decades, global governance institutions, military alliances, trade networks, and even cultural norms have been shaped by this dominance. However, India is emerging as a powerful player that doesn't fully align with any single bloc, challenging the established structure. Unlike during the Cold War or even the post-Cold War unipolar moment, India is crafting a path of strategic autonomy. It engages with the West when interests align, participating in forums like the Quad with the US, Japan, and Australia. Yet it also deepens ties with countries that are often positioned as Western adversaries, such as Russia and members of BRICS. This non-aligned yet assertive stance is unsettling to those accustomed to binary alliances and predictable loyalties. India's geographic location also plays a vital role. Situated in a critical position in the Indo-Pacific, it commands strategic sea routes and borders key global players like China and Pakistan. With tensions rising in the region, India's military buildup, naval expansion, and regional partnerships are gaining global attention. This makes India not just a regional power, but a central node in future global stability or instability. Furthermore, India is no longer content with just being labeled a developing country. It is demanding a seat at decision-making tables, from permanent representation at the UN Security Council to leadership roles in global climate, trade, and tech discussions. This active push to reshape multilateral platforms and question the legitimacy of current power structures adds to the discomfort in Western capitals that have historically dominated global policy. India's assertiveness in diplomacy and policy is creating a new reality in global power dynamics. India's transformation into a global economic powerhouse is one of the core reasons behind the growing anxiety in the West. With a GDP that recently surpassed major economies to enter the top 5 globally, India's economic trajectory is no longer seen as just promising. It's disruptive. This growth is fueled by a combination of factors: a massive consumer base, a flourishing services sector, rapid digitalization, and strong domestic demand. India is positioning itself as an alternative to China in global supply chains. As geopolitical tensions push companies to diversify their manufacturing bases, India is becoming a favored destination for foreign direct investment. Multinational corporations in sectors like electronics, automotive, and pharmaceuticals are increasingly looking to India not just as a market, but as a production hub. Government initiatives such as Make in India and production-linked incentives are further accelerating this shift. The technology sector is another major engine of growth. India has become the global leader in IT services and is now rapidly advancing in areas like artificial intelligence, fintech, and digital infrastructure. Its homegrown digital platforms, like UPI for payments and Aadhaar for identity, are being studied and even replicated by other countries, including some in the West. This is changing the traditional flow of innovation, which usually moved from west to east. India's startup ecosystem is also gaining momentum, with dozens of unicorns emerging in recent years. The rise of a new entrepreneurial class is fostering innovation at scale, often bypassing traditional Western models. Additionally, India's trade relationships are expanding beyond Western economies, with stronger ties being built across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This rise is not happening quietly. It's being built with confidence, ambition, and scale that challenge long-standing economic hierarchies and make traditional powers uneasy about maintaining their dominance. India's demographic profile is one of its most powerful strategic assets, reshaping global perceptions and triggering concern among established powers. With a population exceeding 1.4 billion, India has recently overtaken China as the most populous country in the world. But it's not just the size of the population that matters, it's the structure. Over 65% of India's population is under the age of 35, making it the youngest major nation on Earth. This youthful demographic represents an enormous reservoir of potential. As aging populations in the West and in countries like Japan and China begin to strain their economies and welfare systems, India's work-age population continues to expand. This demographic dividend can drive sustained economic growth, innovation, and consumption over the next several decades, providing India with a long-term advantage that few other nations possess. The global labor market is already feeling the effects. India is becoming a critical supplier of talent across sectors, from information technology and engineering to healthcare and education. Indian professionals are leading global firms, contributing to cutting-edge research and increasingly shaping the direction of international industries. Western nations are beginning to recognize that they will depend more and more on Indian human capital to sustain their own systems. Within India, this young population is highly connected, digitally literate, and increasingly aspirational. As digital infrastructure expands across urban and rural areas alike, the youth are driving e-commerce, digital banking, education tech, and social media usage at unprecedented rates. This creates a dynamic internal market and positions India as both a producer and consumer of the technologies that will define the future. The demographic trend also enhances India's strategic influence. In global discussions about the future of work, migration, education, and healthcare, India's youthful population places it at the center of debates that were once dominated by aging Western societies. India's approach to technology and digital infrastructure is redefining how developing nations can build independent, scalable, and inclusive digital systems. While many countries, including those in the West, rely heavily on private tech giants for digital innovation and infrastructure, India is charting its own course. It is building robust public digital platforms that serve citizens directly and offer an alternative to the dominance of Western big tech. One of the most significant examples is the India Stack, a set of interoperable public digital systems that includes Aadhaar digital identity, UPI real-time digital payments, and DigiLocker secure digital document storage. These platforms are not only transforming governance and service delivery within India, but are also being adopted or studied by other nations looking for sovereign digital solutions. UPI alone processes billions of transactions every month and has outpaced many Western payment systems in scale and efficiency. India's digital strategy emphasizes inclusion. Unlike Silicon Valley-led models that focus on profit-first innovation, India's tech ecosystem is centered around accessibility, affordability, and public benefit. Digital literacy campaigns, mobile-first services, and low-cost internet access have helped bring hundreds of millions of people online, many for the first time. This model of digital sovereignty is challenging the Western paradigm, where private corporations often control data, infrastructure, and innovation pipelines. India is demonstrating that a government-led digital infrastructure can not only work, but outperform private alternatives in reach and impact. Furthermore, India is making assertive moves in areas like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data protection. Its proposed data laws aim to balance innovation with national interest, prompting pushback from global tech firms. As India prioritizes digital independence, it sets a precedent that other nations are watching closely, particularly those wary of over-reliance on Western technologies or platforms. India's growing capabilities in defense and space are reshaping its global image from a regional power to a strategic heavyweight. This shift is prompting concern among Western nations accustomed to being the uncontested leaders in these domains. India is no longer content with playing a supporting role in global security or scientific exploration. It is actively building the tools, institutions, and alliances necessary to lead. In the defense sector, India is modernizing its military across all domains: land, air, sea, cyber, and space. It is among the world's top military spenders and is investing heavily in indigenous defense production through initiatives like Atmanirbhar Bharat, Self-Reliant India. The country is producing advanced missile systems, fighter aircraft, tanks, and naval vessels, reducing dependence on foreign suppliers and asserting its autonomy in defense strategy. The recent push to become an arms exporter is another sign of this growing confidence. India's strategic location in the Indo-Pacific makes its military posture critical to regional and global stability. It participates in key alliances and dialogues, such as the Quad, and conducts joint military exercises with the United States, France, Russia, and others. This multi-alignment strategy strengthens India's hand on the world stage without tying it exclusively to one bloc. In space, India has made significant advances that have caught the attention of global powers. ISRO's successful lunar missions, including Chandrayaan-3 landing on the Moon's south pole, demonstrate India's growing expertise in deep space exploration. The country is preparing for human spaceflight with the Gaganyaan mission and developing next-generation satellite and launch technologies. These milestones position India as a serious player in the new space race, previously dominated by the US, Russia, and China. These developments signal a strategic ambition that goes beyond defense. It's about shaping the global order on India's terms. India's rise is not only economic or strategic, it is deeply cultural. Through cinema, music, spirituality, fashion, literature, and cuisine, India is expanding its global influence in ways that challenge long-standing Western cultural dominance. This surge in soft power is unsettling to societies that have long shaped the global cultural narrative through Hollywood, Western media, and European institutions. Bollywood, one of the largest film industries in the world, is now reaching massive audiences across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe and North America. Indian films are being dubbed in multiple languages, streaming on global platforms, and gaining traction among international audiences who are increasingly seeking diverse storytelling. Stars like Shah Rukh Khan and Deepika Padukone are recognized worldwide, not just as entertainers but as cultural ambassadors. India's spiritual and philosophical traditions, yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, and Vedanta, have become mainstream across the globe. Yoga, once dismissed in the West as esoteric, is now a billion-dollar global industry with millions practicing it daily. This cultural export has helped shift perceptions of India from a land of mysticism to a source of holistic wellness and ancient wisdom with modern relevance. The global Indian diaspora also plays a key role in expanding this influence. With over 30 million people of Indian origin living abroad, they serve as cultural bridges, introducing Indian values, festivals, languages, and lifestyles to new communities. Events like Diwali are now celebrated in cities like New York, London, and Sydney, with official recognition and widespread participation. India's literature, fashion, and cuisine are also gaining prominence. Indian authors are winning international awards, designers are featuring in global fashion weeks, and Indian food is becoming a staple in multicultural urban centers. These cultural shifts are subtle yet powerful, challenging the Western monopoly on global taste and identity. India is increasingly challenging the West's long-standing monopoly over global narratives on democracy, development, human rights, and modernity. For decades, Western institutions, media, and academics shaped how the world viewed progress, power, and legitimacy. India, as it rises, is no longer accepting those interpretations without question. It is offering its own perspective and insisting that it be heard. This shift is especially visible in how India frames its democracy. While Western nations have often criticized India for its internal complexities and political choices, India counters by highlighting the scale and resilience of its democratic model. Conducting elections with over 900 million voters, maintaining a diverse, multi-party system, and balancing freedoms with governance in a population of over a billion is no small feat. India is asserting that democracy cannot have a one-size-fits-all blueprint crafted in the West. In global debates on development, India is promoting a model rooted in sustainability, digital access, and inclusive growth. Rather than adopting Western economic templates wholesale, it is building hybrid systems, mixing market-driven innovation with strong state-led infrastructure. This is especially relevant to countries in the global South, many of which see India's path as more relatable and replicable than Western models. India is also questioning how global institutions frame issues like climate responsibility, global trade rules, and international aid. It argues that many of these frameworks disproportionately favor developed nations and ignore the historical burdens placed on emerging economies. By doing so, India positions itself as a voice for fairness, balance, and representation on the world stage. The ability to frame the story is a form of power, and by telling its own story, proudly, confidently, and on its own terms, India is disrupting a global narrative structure that once belonged almost entirely to the West. India's rise is not just about economics, technology, or population. It's about rewriting the rules of power, identity, and influence. As the old order watches with unease, a new chapter is being written, bold, sovereign, and unapologetically Indian. The panic from the West is not fear of destruction, but fear of disruption. And that disruption is already here. So stand tall, speak loud, and never forget. When a nation dares to define itself, the world has no choice but to listen. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your spirit. Good luck.